Hey guys, welcome to the shop. Now, this week we're going to be taking off kind of where we left off last week. We are working on the motor for our K&T mill out here. We built a cast iron ring, or at least started building one. It is a seal for the back of the rotor on this thing. We need to grind a tool, so we're going to be using the cutter grinder to grind our tool. Then we're going to split this ring in the shaper, just for fun. So, and of course, I've got some other stuff too, so let's stop wasting time and get started. Alright guys, so if you've watched last week's video, you know where we're at, because I haven't done anything to this motor since. And this is the motor off the big K&T mill for anyone who didn't watch last week's video. And let me get those guys up to speed real quick on what we're doing. Now, last week we turned this ring. This ring is going to turn into a split ring, which kind of acts like a piston ring and creates a seal. And all this ring does is fit on the end of the rotor and stop grease from backing up into the motor and getting on the windings, which is what I believe this motor has suffered from in the past. The rings fit down in this bore and they expand against the ID of it and create a seal. One of them was broken, so we made a new one. I've yet to split it. This is a complete ring. This is one of the originals. So we need to split it and give it a set or spring it in order for it to push out against the ID of this end bell. So what we're going to do is go over to the high-speed steel toolbox. We're going to find a tool that will be a good candidate to grind to give us the end ring gap that we want. We'll take it to the cutter grinder, we'll grind it, then we'll take this ring over to the shaper, hold it in the shaper vise, split it, and then we'll have to come up with a way to, spring this thing. So it's a big process, so let's find a tool and get started. Alright, so this is my high-speed steel cabinet where I keep all my blanks and stuff. And we need to find, wow, that's a heavy drawer. We need to find something that will, give us the end that we're looking for. And 5/8 blanks. And there's something that's close, but that's pretty wide. There we go, right there. Man, that is a hack job for sure. Really nice on this end, 60 degree. This is a 5/8 piece of, what is that? Oh, Southern. It is a piece of Southern high-speed steel. So we're going to take this over to the cutter grinder. We're going to grind it into the shape that we need and turn it into something that's not so ugly. Wow. Oh gosh, we need a holder for it, for the shaper. Hopefully we have something that'll hold 5/8 blanks. Yeah. There is a big Armstrong T5S, and I keep, for anybody who's not familiar with it, a lot of you guys know, but I keep light bulbs in my toolbox in all my drawers like this, just a 100-watt incandescent. I haven't changed a light bulb in forever, but I just keep them on. It keeps all this stuff warm and it doesn't rust. If you're in a climate like me that changes constantly, it's nice to have. This is another 5/8 blank holder. This is a T5S, but this one is original and it has not been ground on, which will not fit in my tool post. This is one that has been slightly shortened on the top, about 1/4 inch or so, and I can use this one in my shaper. So let's go over to the cutter grinder, let's grind this, then we'll get set up on the shaper. Alright guys, so to grind this piece of high-speed steel, we're going to be using our KOE little small cutter grinder. It's the knockout version. This one happens to have the high-speed spindle, which is really good for, I don't know about really good, but capable of doing small stones at high speeds for like ID grinding and stuff. But we're not going to be doing any of that. We're just going to be simple tool grinding. And what we're going to be using is a wheel that I have not shown you guys before, and I've only used it once myself. I bought this wheel from Shars. It is, man, that wind is kicking out there. It's a CBN D1A1, basically a straight wheel with the abrasive material on the outside. So I'm going to get everything swung around. We will get set up and we'll grind this thing. Alright, so I'm about set up. Let me give you a real quick look at the tool and what we're starting with. And hopefully you can see that. It is, man, it's rough. Somebody's butchered this thing. But hopefully we can turn it into something useful and give us the slot that we need. So I think this thing is about 60 thousandths wide, so we need to really almost split, well, take about 20 thousandths or so off of it and get it into a shape that actually works. On our vacuum, variable frequency drive, and I've already run this spindle and warmed it up. I haven't ran this thing in a couple weeks, so just run it slow for a little bit till it, gets the oil circulated and stuff in it. This wheel has not been dressed or trued, so it is out around. But for this wheel, I really don't care if it's a little out. Alright, so I got the top ground and I went ahead and ground this side. Now, where they ground this thing by hand, I'm not going to be able to clean this thing up completely. It'll never look good. But all I care is that it works, to be honest. And now we just got to grind it to the width that we want. And put it on the shaper and use it. There we go, it's 39 and a half. That'll have to work. I think it's good enough. I mean, it's not really that critical. I think we're about ready to go, other than I need to run this thing for a minute and get the oil circulating, and it's set for a couple weeks, so I think that's probably a good idea. This thing's got a lot of sliding machine surfaces that require good lubrication. If the lubrication system died on a shaper, it wouldn't take long for it to self-destruct. I've got my tool set up pretty well. I just squared the tool up itself with a little machinist square off the top of the vise. Got my clapper box set vertical, that way especially when you're slotting, your tool comes through that slot, and if the clapper was to lift or it was to get hung up, you don't want that tool tilting off to the side. And we got our vise set perpendicular to the movement of the ram. That way we can take our ring, set it in the vise really as low as we can, and then come in and split it. So I'm going to start this thing up. We'll probably be running, I'm guessing, a 2-inch stroke. This handle here both operates ram positioning, and you can move it down here, and this dial tells you how far or how much of a stroke you're going to get. It just offsets the mechanism on the big bull gear, and that changes the amount the ram moves. So let's fire up our phase converter. Make sure we're in neutral. The belts are noisy. We can pull the clutch with this machine in neutral, and that still runs the oil pump, so it'll sit here and oil itself without anything really moving other than the gears in the trans box or in the transmission that are already bathed in oil anyway. So I'm going to let this thing run for a minute, and we'll come back, we'll square everything up and cut this thing. This thing only has power feed, in the X-axis. It doesn't have it in the compound, and it doesn't have it in the knee. Now, those were options, but this machine didn't come with it. This machine was originally bought by Procter & Gamble. All right, let's try to get this thing split. Good to me. Now, yeah, just need to deburr it, but yeah. So now we need to figure out how we're going to, expand this thing a little. Well, guys, I had to bring you out here. Something strange is happening that I haven't experienced in quite a while, and that is the sun's shining and it's not raining. Now, I brought you guys out here. I want to show you something that I haven't showed any of you guys on the channel. Now, everybody's familiar that's watched me for any amount of time with the creek that runs by my house, but I own property across the road also, and I want to take you over there and show you the creek that runs across the street, because it's really pretty. Alright, so we've walked across the creek. This is my house from the road, and if you look up there, you can see the shop, just barely. But let me turn you around here and show you the waterway. It's really running kind of heavy right now, but this runs all the way down to the end of my road. It is a beautiful area around here. And the leaves are just now starting to change on the trees. Hopefully we get some pretty fall weather this year with a lot of color change. And around here, the leaves really turn orange and red. Let me take you down in here and get you a better shot. Alright, I'm going to give you a 360 view from my driveway. Absolutely no one but me. I think that's probably turned out about as good as I could expect, and I'm pretty happy with it so far. But I think the most critical part is, expanding this thing. Now, if I was to just take this ring and pull on it, chances are it would bend more in one spot than the other and would be out of round, and when I put it in here, it wouldn't seal. It may be springy, but it wouldn't be round. So I'm going to do what I was told to do, and that is heat this thing with something in the gap. Now, I was told to do this in the comments by some of the guys who build rings and stuff for steam engines, so I'm sure they've done this before and know what they're talking about. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take something that is about the size of the gap that I want to end up with and spread my new ring out to where hopefully this thing doesn't break. Man, that would suck. And it did not, so that's good. So that will hold it open, and then I'm going to take this thing and heat it, turn the light off to where I can see the color real well, heat it to about a carrot red is what I was told, hold that for around 10 minutes, and then cool it slow. And the idea is, I guess it will relax the ring evenly all the way around. It will take a set and be springy, but still be round. So that's the plan. Hopefully it works. I got a little setup over here to heat this thing in, so let's go over here and give it a shot. I'm going to use a propane torch and hope this works. And I hope that it doesn't crack. There we go. I hope that works. Alright, so it's been probably about 2.5 hours. Still a little warm. But it's not broken. That's a good thing. Yeah. Check that out. It actually worked. Hopefully it doesn't snap in two. It actually worked. Huh. It did. So that's awesome. Now we have a ring. There's the original and the one we just made. Oh man, don't you break on me. Well, I'm happy with the way that that's turned out, and I would consider that pretty much done. Now, you know, I could have just bought a set of seal bearings. Instead of making a ring and spending a day, I could have took those rings off, threw them in the trash can, stuck on a set of seal bearings, and been pretty much done. But I'm glad I did it this way. You know, I didn't know how to make those rings, and now, you know, I'm fairly confident that I could do it again if I needed to, and, you know, get one right. Because that one actually turned out pretty good. It seems to still be round, and definitely has some spring to it. So, you know, now all that's left is to clean up these end bells really well and assess what I need to do on the stator, because, you know, I'm just not for sure how much time I want to invest in this thing. I've already put way too much in it, let's just say that. Got these end bells pretty clean as I'm going to get them. I've cleaned out all the grease passages and stuff, the bores and the underneaths and on the shields. And all I'm going to do is give them a quick rattle can paint job. I'm definitely not going to spend, you know, $25 on, or $30 probably, in paint in order to give this thing a really good paint job. It's just not worth it. And speaking of not worth it, you know, I've invested way more time in this thing than it's really worth. So what I've decided to do as far as the windings or the stator on this thing is just clean it up as good as I can and put it back together. Everything's going to be clean, it'll look decent, and it'll either work or it won't. Because from what I've gathered, you know, talking over the last week with some of my viewers and stuff that are far more, you know, educated on electronics than I am, is that even if I test this motor, the windings, with a voltmeter, just ohming it out, that really won't tell me anything. Now it can tell me if I have a direct short or something, or if I have a big variation between one set of windings and the next, which could potentially be a problem. But it won't tell me how that stator is going to perform under load. And in order to test it properly, you should have a meg meter, just what I've gathered. And all it does is supply high voltage to the windings and check the, you know, how strong that insulation is. Do you have leakage and stuff like that? I've even had, you know, viewers offer to ship me one out just to, you know, test this thing. But I've decided that that's, you know, it'll take 3 weeks in order to get, you know, shipping back and forth and all that stuff. It'll cost money that this thing's not even worth. If this thing was sitting in somebody's yard in the condition that it was when I pulled it out of that machine, I wouldn't have taken it even for scrap. You know, it's just not worth it.